Great Debaters Contest 2016 registration is now open. Teachers or school administrations should register on www.greatdebaterscontest.com/register.
Welcome to the home of champions, Eldoret. This is the Great Debaters Contest, and I am your host, Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Yumbok. Our motion today is extreme poverty is the biggest threat to sustainable development. We have Chebisaas boys versus Loreto Convent Matunda. Who will be the victor, Mariam?
We'll find out, and it depends on how they handle this very sensitive topic. Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes.
Well, as the motion states, that extreme poverty is the greatest threat to sustainable development. When we talk about sustainable development, we mean to meet basic needs of the people today without interfering with the future generation doing the same. To have this sustainable development, we need capital, that is funds and the money. So, if there is poverty in the country, you find that the money is being used to do things like renovating slums, giving title deeds to the homeless people, and educating street children. So that hinders us sustaining our development. To my second point, having debts is a sign of poverty. And if we have many debts in the country, you find that we cannot concentrate on sustaining these already developments we have. We have to try and find a way and pay these debts. So you find that the developments already there cannot be met, cannot be looked at because we want to pay our debts. On my other point, we have these big projects like the Konza City, like expanding our railway lines, and we cannot do that without having help like the investors, the contractors. And if there is poverty in that country where the expansion is going to take place, the investors, the contractors are scared away. So they cannot come and invest their money. So when we talk about sustainable development in terms of projects, we find that poverty scares away those investors and those contractors. Unemployment to people with PhDs, unemployment to people with masters, unemployment to people with degrees. What does this bring about? Poverty. It demoralizes even the person who is in the village to study, the person who is poor. Because, this person learned, but is still poor. So what is the need to pursue education? So what does that again do to the country? It brings high levels of illiteracy. High levels of illiteracy, that leads to low living standards. Low living standards, there is no capital, there is no funds, meaning we cannot sustain the developments that we already have. I'm Fatuma Hiribai. Thank you.
Opposition will hear your opening statements. You have 3 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I do stand here before you as Shama Akoto from Chebisaas Boys High School. This day, I stand to oppose the motion that extreme poverty is the biggest threat to a sustainable development. Why, you may ask, you are yet to know in a few minutes. First off, let me begin by defining what is extreme poverty. As defined by the United Nations in 1995, extreme poverty is a condition characterized by the deprivation of basic human needs, such as food, shelter, sanitary facilities, safe drinking water, information, and education. On the other hand, sustainable development is the development of a country or region that does not require more natural resources, thus does not have an impact on the environment, and this leaves a better environment for the upcoming generations. Since I'm a fan of Bollywood movies, I like taking the example of India. Just to give you some brief background information of India, India is a country that has a population of about 1.2 billion people. Statistics conducted by the World Bank show that 31.4% of India's population are people who are living in extreme poverty, with each person earning about $1 a day. India, as we all know it, is a country that has advanced in terms of medical technology. I believe most of you here are affected by people who suffer from cancer. If I suffer from cancer, I might decide to go to a hospital in Nairobi, like, let's say, Kenyatta. But when I go there, the doctors will tell me, the disease that you have, I'm afraid it is not, we cannot handle it at this level. So they'll advise me to go to India. India, its population is 31. The 31% of India's population that is occupied by poverty is about 360 million people. In Kenya, we have 40 million people. So that is 12 times the population of Kenya. So I'm trying to show you that poverty, despite it being in a country in large numbers, it does not affect development at all. In terms of education, when I clear my high school, I might think of going to a country that has developed well. I might go to, let's say, India or other states such as United States of America. I believe one politician in our country, that is Anyang' Nyong'o, suffered from prostate cancer. He didn't get treatment here in Kenya. But I'm not also trying to bring in that Kenya is suffering from poverty that does not lead to a sustainable growth. What I'm trying to put across is that despite the fact that there is poverty in a country, it does not affect development in any way. And lastly, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Nelson Mandela, who said, "Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, it is an act of justice." Thank you.
Time for rebuttals now, beginning with the proposers. You have 3 minutes.
Well, this goes to the opposers. It's pretty clear the reason why most of our people are going to other countries for medicine and higher education is simply because we do not have those facilities. Why don't we have those facilities? Our poverty levels are so high, and it is also pretty obvious, no matter how much we deny it, our country is neck deep in debt. And what are we doing about it? Let's see. Our poor people cannot be moved to somewhere else. Take, for instance, the Kibera slums. How long have those slums stayed that way? Well, since I was born, and that was in 1998, I've seen those slums not moving because the government cannot go there and develop it, since where will those people go? And they're, okay, pretty obvious, really poor. So due to the poverty in our country, intelligent people and people with very high potential go to other countries to seek higher education, work there, and nothing comes our way, making us face another, if unnoticeable, economic drop. Taxes are evaded by the people who are poor, since how do you expect me to pay VAT in a really, like when coming from Dubai to Kenya, when I can't even afford to feed myself? Our taxes are the moving economy of Kenya. Without taxes, how do you expect to survive as a country? And when all these poor people dodge the taxes, we simply face an economical decline. Citizens below the line, even when developed, do not use the developments that are accessed, making us not be able to sustain them. Take, for instance, the flats that were built in one of the slums just after Langata. How many people have moved in there, since these poverty-stricken families are very comfortable and seated down in their slum, and they can't even, should I say, understand how to use the flats they've been given. And the flats become just another waste of money, just another waste of our taxes paid, and nothing is being done about it. So the money and the time being used to renovate places like that flat that has been built would have even been used to make a road, increase something, build a school for poor people, and that is not being done. Also, we have illiteracy, as my colleague said. the poverty-stricken people are faced by illiteracy, since they do not have enough money to go to schools and acquire the kind of education we need, making unemployment also come in, which if you're unemployed, it means you're not earning. And if you're not earning, there's nothing you're doing toward increasing our state's economy. Yeah, that's all.
Opposition will hear your rebuttal now. You have 3 minutes.
I'll begin by starting with a quote from Albert Einstein, who once said that history is written by the rich, but the poor are rather blamed. In the year 2014, I'm sure most of you were born. If you could visit slums such as Kibera, the level of development was prone. But at the current rate, due to the introduction of the national youth projects such as the NYS, it helps to eradicate poverty at the same time to develop. Basing on what I know, in developing countries, there is more industrialization and there is more pollution. Have we ever thought about the effects which come with pollution? Have we ever thought about the government expenditure which will have been used in other development projects but will be diverted to treatment, to the production of better health care? Have we ever thought about removal of waste products of agricultural effluents in rivers? Have we ever thought about the amount of money used by the government? I'd like to quote from what a biblical philosopher once said, that giving to the poor is like giving to the Lord, of which you'll profit from that. Basing on what I know, pollution has its effects. In the year 2015, India improved its development by producing coal. However, it came with its effects. It came with pollutant effects such as cancer. The government of India rather used more money after the revenue earned from pollution, from development of production of coal, was diverted to healthcare to treat cancer. Also, if you have visited Kibera, we know that Kibera is one of the third largest slums in the world. This place rather faces poverty, in the sense that in developed countries, due to poverty levels, they'll have mercy on us, and thus they'll give us financial grants that will help to develop the countries. Look, for example, the transnational highway, which connects Kenya to Uganda. This highway is used to import produce by Uganda. The government of Kenya can thus tax the Ugandan government and get revenue, of which will help to improve the economic development of the country. Basing on what I know, Mahatma Gandhi once said that poverty is the mother of revolution and crime. From what I know, these countries, we should not blame the poverty-stricken people for lack of development. Thank you. I'm Dennis Mawio from Chebisaas Boys High School.
The Great Debaters Contest 2016 registration is now open. Teachers or school administrations should register on www.greatdebaterscontest.com/register. The Great Debaters Contest 2016 registration is now open. Teachers or school administrations should register on www.greatdebaterscontest.com/register.
Thank you, audience, for those questions. The proposers have been asked how extreme poverty discourages investors, and the opposition have been asked if poverty is not a threat to sustainable development, then how can nations develop despite their poverty? We'll have them respond. Third proposer, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. The question was, how does poverty chase investors? Okay, as we look into poverty, these investors' fear of the risks and insecure of the risk behind the country's economy. Our investors are not even sure if they'll be paid, since the countries itself is neck deep in debt. That's why many investors fear to come up with something, because the country itself has low money. That's why the investors fear to come and do something like development. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to respond.
I'm Abednego Kipkoech from Chebisaas High School. I'm here to answer a question from my fellow debate colleague. He's asking about how do those poor countries which have no funds at all benefit from it and get developed. I will answer simply, and I think the second opposer posted that issue very well. There was the issue of financial aids, the foreign aids that are being offered to these poor countries. I think, you all know about these Western countries that are so much developed, and they have a lot of surplus funds with them. So they help those countries that are not well developed. And a good example is the issue of the European Union, which offered the money that constructed the Trans-African Highway connecting Kenya to Uganda, that was constructed by Tauro Company. I think this road is almost being completed. It started around 2013. Yeah, that was the time it started. And I think it is under construction by the foreign grants. This is how we benefit from them. We benefit from countries that have more, and we get more from them in between when we are poor. They have mercy on us. And the second issue is that after investors see that this is a poor country, they always take advantage and give you less money so that you may spend, so they will have a cheaper labor force. And then these people that are poor, I think you all know that necessity is the mother of invention. When you don't have, the little you get, you convert it into so much. And a good example is when we are having foreign investors building industries in us. Where you go to industrial area in Nairobi and you realize that most of these industries are owned by foreign companies. But we benefit from them in that we get employment, and out of the employment, we get to utilize the funds that are created into entrepreneurial practices, opening more businesses. So you realize that when you are poor, you have a higher chance to move into more developments compared to countries that are rich. Thank you.
We'll hear closing submissions now. Proposition, you have 1 minute.
Well, on my closing statement, I'd like to say that I strongly believe that poverty, by all its means, should be curbed and tamed, and that we as a nation should come together and make sure we do everything possible to curb poverty. That is all.
Opposition, you have a minute as well.
Once again, I'm Abednego Kipkoech from Chebisaas High School. I would like to conclude this way, that I don't see this reason as to why people take poverty as being a barrier to development. I think when we look at, for the case of Kenya, which is now improving on education, which helps us to give us professional skills, it leads to a dependence on the white-collar jobs rather than the blue-collar jobs, which would otherwise be an advantage to a country that is less developed because they won't have funds to improve the education system. So you realize that once you have a good education system, you will remove a lot of professionals who will not have the job to suit into the current labor force in the country. And this is very much supported by the United Census Bureau that was conducted between the year 2013 and 2014, that stated that levels of poverty increased among only two groups, one being those with bachelor's degree and above, and then the other group was for the married couples. I think this is an indication that even these developed countries that have a lot of funds, they are still fading more on their issues of development. Thank you.
Chebisaas boys, and I would want to start with Shama. Shama, I love the fact that you are well spoken. You come and you define the motion very well, and with citations, when you cite the UN and your sources on all the statements that you do. To cut a story short, you're an excellent debater. Keep it up. Dennis, Mario, very good voice. Even when you start as well, you pick the motion very well. That was a good start and good submissions and cross-examination. Abednego, strong voice as well. Nice tackling of questions. I think there was teamwork in that group.
Loreto, Convent, Matunda. Are there examples of or instances where we have seen that extreme poverty and how it has actually hindered sustainable development? And there are various examples that you can draw from many of the countries that are in the developing nations, and that did not come forward. One of your team members needs to come at the end and make a final submission. And that's like the clincher. You know, this is what you want everybody to remember your team for. And when you say, that's all I have to say, you know, and you want to run away from the stage, then you're also, you know, not doing justice to your team. So I think going forward, I hope that you have learned some lessons, and I'm hoping to see a better team next time. All the best.
Loreto Convent Matunda, you garnered 58%. Please give them a round of applause. Chebisaas Boys High School, you are our winners for today with 71%. Please give them a round of applause.
Indeed, bravo to the gentlemen of Chebisaas, and of course congratulations to both teams for a wonderful debate. Thank you for taking the time to watch us. Follow us on Twitter at Great Debaters EA and all other social media platforms. I have been your host, Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Nyumbok. Catch you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest 2016 registration is now open. Teachers or school administrations should register on www.greatdebaterscontest.com/register.